Hey everyone, this is the Irish Sponge here and welcome back to my channel for another game review. Today I'll be reviewing Fallout New Vegas, which is a game that most people probably know at this stage, either through word of mouth or on the internet. It is a post-apocalyptic RPG set in Western America, and in typical Fallout fashion it has a strange vibe that feels both old-timey and futuristic at the same time, if a little dystopian. It follows events after a nuclear apocalypse and during a war over natural resources between the USA and China, which is scarily similar to current events at the moment. I will get into more detail about the storyline and the characters and all that later on in the video, but for now, let's dive into the gameplay first. So the gameplay itself is basically just an improved and tweaked version of Fallout 3, and they both use the same Gamebryo engine. Fallout New Vegas also has a few new features on top of the existing Fallout 3 setup. There are added kill animations, especially for melee weapons, and the response and accuracy for weapons have been improved as well. Players can now use the iron sights on most weapons, which they previously could not do in Fallout 3. The third person point of view has been improved and is more accessible than the Fallout 3 point of view, and the character creation process is much quicker, giving you the option to start right away and basically skip the tutorial. There are now more character options to improve your character as they progress, and a minor overhaul of the perk system to include more active and functional effects on your character, and to prevent your character becoming too strong early in the game, as is sometimes the case in RPGs with poor leveling design. More weapons have been added to the game, and the weapons are more tactics based and functional than before, and the game in general has more of an emphasis on survival than previous Fallout games, with the addition of many more scavenging, crafting and item modification options. Skill plays more of a factor than luck or chance generally throughout the game, which adds a slight edge of difficulty. If gambling is your thing, there are several opportunities to play minigames throughout your travels, whether that be poker, blackjack, roulette, caravan or slot machines. The reputation and karma system are slightly different than that of Fallout 3, with fame and infamy being separate values and irreversible. So it is possible to be favourable with one faction but be disliked by another faction, and this affects your character both actively and passively. The companion system has been largely overhauled and improved, with more depth and options than before, and most companions have their own unique quest line. The player character can interact more meaningfully with their companions and be more involved with them, and the DLC has added even more companions on top of the already existing ones in the main game. Finally, one more major gameplay feature is the addition of hardcore mode, which adds an extra level of realism and difficulty. This does not only affect the combat difficulty but the gameplay, with older statistics and resources, which is designed to make you be more mindful of items you are using and your strategy. This feature is an excellent addition in my opinion, and I really think it's cool that this was adapted from a mod and took inspiration from fan-made endeavours. In hardcore mode, all healing substances, including food and drink, act over a period rather than instantly healing the player. Instead of acting immediately, Radaway gradually reduces radiation poisoning. Stimpaks no longer work to repair amputated limbs. To mend limbs, players must either use doctor's bags, rest in a bed they own or rent, use the chemical Hydra or see a doctor. The amount that can be carried is limited by the added weight of ammunition. To avoid starvation, dehydration, tiredness, players must eat, drink and sleep. Failing to do so results in a gradual loss of some skills, and if left unchecked, finally results in death. When a companion's hit points are 0, they can be killed without losing consciousness. This game mode adds an extra challenge to seasoned players who want to experience Fallout in a different way, and while it not be for everyone, it was definitely a worthwhile addition. So that's pretty much everything regarding gameplay. In my opinion, it's basically an improved and polished version of Fallout 3, and it's full of new features, but it also still feels like an old school Fallout game. The emphasis on skills can occasionally be a nuisance, particularly during missions where, for example, having a high lockpick ability feels nearly essential to completion, but overall, skills tend to improve the overall experience and encourage varied original player characters. The only major letdown I'd say regarding gameplay is the fact that the game is running off the dated Fallout 3 engine, so falls prone to the AI flaws, bugs and glitches, but the pros I mentioned vastly outweigh the cons, and for what you're getting you can ignore these problems. Just before I begin, there is some minor spoilers in this section, so feel free to skip forward to this timestamp if you want. The game is set 4 years after the events of Fallout 3 and 204 years after the Great War of 2077 in the year 2281. Fallout New Vegas takes place in an area encompassing the former city of Las Vegas, now a city-state named New Vegas. The New California Republic, also known as NCR, Caesar's Legion and Mr. House are the three main forces vying for dominance of New Vegas and the surrounding area to start the game. The NCR has expanded eastward since their last appearance in Fallout 2, which has given them control of the bulk of the Mojave land despite being overextended and poorly managed. The Mojave Wasteland, which includes portions of the former states of California, Nevada and Arizona, is where most of the game is set. The area has numerous smaller groups in addition to the three major factions. These include the Great Khans, a tribe of drug dealers and raiders, descended from the remnants of the New Khans in Fallout 2, the Boomers, who are an isolationist and xenophobic tribe of heavily armed former vault dwellers who sought refuge at Nellis Air Force Base, and the Powder Rangers, a violent, loosely organised group of escaped convicts from the NCR correctional facility near Primm. The story itself I'm not going to go into too deeply so I don't spoil it, but I will cover briefly for the purposes of this video. The main character is a courier for the Mojave Express, a postal agency that delivers mail to and from New Vegas and the nearby Mojave Desert. As the courier heads to New Vegas to transport a mysterious object known as the Platinum Chip, he's attacked by a mobster and casino proprietor called Benny, and this is where the game starts. Benny takes the chip, shoots the courier in the head, and then abandons him in a small cemetery not far from Goodsprings. The courier is then discovered by a Securitron called Victor and revived by Doc Mitchell, who's a local doctor in Goodsprings. The courier then sets off to find Benny and get the Platinum Chip by travelling across the Mojave Wasteland. The courier makes choices that determine how the game develops, and a variety of various characters, events, and groups are involved. In the main storyline, the courier pursues Benny to settle the score and reclaim the Platinum Chip. However, the courier meets numerous groups of people along the way who have various issues that they can choose to help with, neglect, or undermine, which could have an impact on the overall path of events in the Mojave and result in bad or good karma. Based on the player's decisions regarding the future of the Mojave Wasteland, the game has 4 main outcomes. Additionally, if you eventually manage to finish everything in the main game, there's lots of DLC and extra content available, which I'll be going over later in the video. There are numerous side tasks to complete in addition to the main narrative, and these are what really makes the game stand out. There are few restrictions on travel in New Vegas' open environment, and there's an overwhelming number of locations to find, and nearly everyone you meet will need your assistance at some point. You'll find that there are underground sewers to brave or some other previously unexplored region just when you believe you've investigated every inch of the place. While some quests are brief and kind of up to go and fetch type, others are genuinely epic stories to take centre stage. Themes like deception, cannibalism, space travel and substance abuse can all be found in the most unexpected places. The graphics are the only major thing that lets down this otherwise near perfect game. Graphically, like many early Xbox 360 games, New Vegas has aged like milk. For example, the textures were made to contain a lot of the world's detail, however this can cause issues if the illumination interacts poorly with surfaces, if nearby objects have varying degrees of detail, or if the objects are distinct from one another. Character textures frequently appear worse to me than landscape textures because these flaws appear much more pronounced. Models can also look bad at times because there are so many visible vertices, but this was never particularly noticeable while playing. I cannot help noticing the textures and lighting on some objects, however. The animations do have limitations, mainly due to a loss of authenticity and repetitiveness. Long-winded talks frequently end with an NPC repeatedly performing the same animation. As you experience this more and more, it can become quite irritating. The numerous bugs I ran into are what really takes a toll on the graphics. Some of these might just be random glitches, like a dog's eye being drawn next to its head, or they might just be general animation issues, but others are unquestionably game-related issues. For example, I came across one location where some of the rock's faces were absent, enabling you to see under and through the models. Although I've never completely walked under the map, you can sometimes walk under the rock walls. Another issue I encountered several times that was quite problematic was enemies spawning partially under the ground, causing them to be stuck. This was helpful in preventing the enemy from moving and presenting a threat in some situations, but it also made the enemy very difficult to see or damage. Regardless of any advantages I might have had, this is a significant problem. It's important to note that I did not experience this problem on the DLC, only in the main game. The lighting is adequate but unremarkable. I never observed any distinctive hue or haze in the environment like there was in Fallout 3. In some instances, lighting is much more noticeable than I would anticipate. If I'm to be particularly nitpicky, fire could look better, as it does in screenshots in fact. It appears to be nothing more than a golden and orange speck shooting up from a source when observed in-game. Even though images show the wisps and strands clearly, I still think the flames could use a stronger contrast. Currently the fire lacks some clarity because the colouring is so light, particularly when the fire is smaller. Like the previous game, the water is entirely smooth except when you or somebody else wades in. This results in circular waves emanating from the figure, which, while not particularly realistic looking, fulfills their purpose. On a positive note, the choice to put the game on the US West Coast, where the first two Fallout games were set, gave Obsidian much more creative freedom than the washed out Washington DC of Fallout 3. In contrast to the previously seen desolate landscapes, there are now bright skies, singing birds, and more indications of society as it moves further away from the game's titular nuclear fallout. The New Vegas Strip, a warped and dark rendition of the actual equivalent, is the focal point of this new setting. In addition to the recognisable burnt out towns and trailer parks, it is every bit as vivid and unforgettable as the crumbling US city of the previous game, complete with vomit-spitting drunks, voluptuous ladies of the night, and a variety of completely playable casinos. Overall, while not perfect graphically, the bugs and dated graphics can be alleviated with the use of a good gaming PC, mods and texture patches. Unfortunately, if you're playing on console, this is something you'll just have to live with. The classic Tribal Caravan and Mercenary pre-order bonus packs from Bethesda were made available when pre-ordering at retailers, and all the pre-order packs mentioned were subsequently made available for purchase on September 22nd, 2011. On May 11, 2010, the Collector's Edition was made public. It was sold all over the globe and is accessible on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and Microsoft Windows. 7 authentic clay poker chips from the Fallout New Vegas casinos, a deck of cards featuring various characters and details about them, a graphic book outlining the events building up to New Vegas, a copy of the Lucky 38 large platinum chip, and a making of video were all included in the package. If you were interested in obtaining any of these, you can get the bonus game cheaply online as either physical media or virtually, and physical items can be found for a reasonable price on the likes of eBay or Gumtree. The documentary can be found for free on YouTube. I'll link it in the description below if you're interested. On October 19, 2010, New Vegas was made available for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. It was also published on October 21st in Australia and on October 22nd in Europe. Players of New Vegas started reporting a variety of technical issues within hours of the game's release. These included corrupted saved games, crashing, and random NPCs suddenly emerging behind the player and initiating combat out of context. To resolve these in-game problems, Bethesda announced that they were actively working on an upgrade for distribution as soon as possible. Assuring customers that giving their users the best experience possible was their number one priority, they pleaded with them to keep their versions of New Vegas rather than returning them to retailers. Within a week of the game's initial release, a patch with over 200 mission scripting related changes was accessible for the PC, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions of the title. Further bugs and save game issues, including companion related ones, were resolved in the upgrade that was made available on December 14, 2010. Later updates that fixed numerous flaws and gameplay issues were published in February and April. Players who only have one save can play through the downloadable material without starting a new game thanks to a patch that was published on July 5th, 2011, which caused the game to automatically make a save game before the endgame scene. To address some unresolved problems, the user community has produced community updates. On the PlayStation 3, the game engine has experienced significant performance problems, resulting in unplayable frame rates when the save game file grows big after prolonged play or occasionally when extra content is loaded. Similar problems beset the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, but New Vegas did not receive the patch that Skyrim did. Josh Sawyer, the director of the game, said that because the problem is with the engine itself, it is difficult to fix. In accordance with the precursor Fallout 3, Bethesda Softworks announced on October 18, 2010 that New Vegas would offer downloadable content, better known as DLC. There are currently 6 official add-ons available: Dead Money, Honest Hearts, Old World Blues, Lonesome Road, Gunrunner's Arsenal, and Courier Stash. The DLC raises the level limit from 30 to 50 when played in its entirety. Dead Money, the first add-on bundle, was released on December 21st for the Xbox 360 and on February 22nd for the PlayStation 3 and PC via Steam. While I'm on the topic of extra content, I should mention the modding community. Fallout New Vegas, like most Bethesda titles, has a large modding community with several well-known and high-profile modders. The most impressive mods, in my opinion, that have been released so far for Vegas are New California and Frontier. They are so huge and well made, they are worthy of their own game review video, so let me know in the comments below if this is something you may be interested in the future. Fallout New California, originally known as Project Brazil, is a major fan-made overhaul mod by Radiant Helix Media that adds a brand new feature-length campaign and world set in the California wastelands of the San Bernardino Mountains, complete with voiced characters, quests, companions, factions, and multiple endings. A large fan-made overhaul mod for Fallout New Vegas, called Fallout the Frontier, is situated in the remains of Portland, Oregon during a nuclear winter. The Frontier has been referred to as the biggest Fallout game mod ever and has been in production for 7 years. With complete voice acting, it has a game-length storyline with 3 quest lines. On January 15, 2021, it became available on Nexus Mods, and a scheduled release on Steam was postponed by 1 week. Soon after the entirety of the mod went live, Nexus's website collapsed. Just as a content warning for mentions of child and animal abuse and SA, please feel free to skip to this timestamp if this is something that may make you uncomfortable. When one of the mod's creator was discovered to have produced animated pedophilic content, the mod was temporarily pulled, but it was later re-released with changes to address these complaints, in which the mod devs removed all problematic content by the former developer, most of which were icons for in-game perks and items. Aside from the poor writing, scenes that suggested zoophilia, the ability to enslave an 18-year-old woman, a lack of coherence with the established Fallout universe, and themes that some critics claimed were representations of the developers' in quotes, barely disguised fetishes, there were other criticisms and controversies surrounding the mod. The Frontier development team responded to these criticisms in May 2021 and announced their plan to completely rewrite the NCR questline as part of their from the ground up redesign of Frontier. They also started hiring new authors, illustrators, and coders for the project following the statement. Project lead T. Gypsy, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, stated in a blog post, quote, "We hope that this new story will do better justice to the characters and to the Frontier as a whole. In my opinion, the DLC is the best out of all the Fallout games and goes so well and works smoothly with the existing game. It feels like the DLC was properly set up during the main game, rather than just a money grab tacked on at the last minute for the sake of extra DLC, as sometimes feels the case with other Bethesda games, and an infamous example being Oblivion's Horse Armor. I really recommend playing the DLC games in their entirety to get the full New Vegas experience. The 4 story DLCs have their ups and downs. For example, the Honest Hearts DLC involved a lot of fetch quests, which got tiring after a while, but it has an amazing backstory to make up for it, the same applying to Old World Blues. Dead Money is difficult and frustrating at times, but makes up for it with amazing atmosphere and characters. And Lonesome Road has a pretty good backstory, but some of the characters and situations didn't really make sense to me when I was playing it. But I would not play them. The pros far outweigh any cons. The pre-order packs I'm not that mad about, however, as I felt they make the game way too easy at first, but they're good if you want to get started quickly with a particular character archetype without having to mold your skills to fit. Before I come to the end of this review, I think I should mention talks of an official Bethesda remake for current generation consoles. I myself had not heard anything official, mostly just dedicated fans remaking and improving the game, as New Vegas has a very large and active modding community, as I explained previously. I think, personally, it will be a good move on Bethesda's part, especially to win back favour from the fans after the whole Fallout 76 fiasco, but this will most likely not happen for a long time, if it ever happens, since Bethesda has a million other things going on right now. And to be devil's advocate for a minute, I understand why they want to focus on new horizons such as Starfield and Hi-Fi Rush, instead of just going with the same safe options such as Elder Scrolls and Fallout. And I know it sounds low-key contradictory considering they've re-released Skyrim like 5,000 times, but I think you know what I mean, where they want to try new things instead of rehashing the same thing over and over, just because it's the safe fan thing to do. But yeah, to conclude, this is my review of new Fallout Vegas DLC. So yeah, New Vegas is 100% worth the play. I would even go as far as to say, except for a few minor flaws due to the dated engine, which can easily be fixed with patches and modding, it is basically a perfect game and super enjoyable, addictive and worthwhile. So yeah, that's pretty much everything for this video. If you made it this far, thanks so much for checking this out, and if you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and maybe even subscribing if you haven't already. This is probably the last game review I'm going to be doing for a while, but if you have any game review suggestions in the meantime, please comment them down below. I want to maybe start a Let's Play series for my next video. I'm not sure which game yet though, but if there is a particular game you'd like me to play, I'm open to suggestions. Finally, if there's anything you'd like me to talk about or cover in general, it doesn't have to be game related, I'm open to that as well. My Instagram is the Irish Sponge if you'd like to DM me, or my email is in my YouTube bio if you want to email me about anything. So yeah, thanks again, and I'll see you next time.